In the shadow of World War II, as the United States grappled with its own prejudices, an unlikely group of heroes emerged at the Tuskegee Army Airfield in Alabama. The year was 1941, and the air was thick with tension as the nation braced itself for the impending conflict. Despite widespread skepticism and institutional racism, the determination of a few individuals would soon challenge the very fabric of military aviation and, ultimately, the morale of the enemy. In the heart of Tuskegee, cadets trained under grueling conditions, their skills honed by the harshest of circumstances. Among them was Charles Anderson, a pilot whose tenacity inspired not only his teammates, but also took the attention of Eleanor Roosevelt. After taking a flight with him, she became a pivotal ally, advocating for the establishment of an all-black flying unit. Her influence led to the creation of the 332nd Fighter Group, a beacon of hope amid a storm of doubt. The cadets faced an uphill battle, initially equipped with obsolete P-40s, while their white counterparts soared in advanced aircraft. Yet, they remained undeterred. March 1942 marked a significant milestone when the first 5 pilots earned their wings, challenging the stigma that had been so deeply ingrained in military doctrine. With each takeoff, they etched their names into the annals of history, determined to prove their worth in combat. As the 99th Fighter Squadron commenced its first mission in June 1943, the stakes were high. Despite being met with skepticism and underestimation, they flew bravely alongside the bombers they were assigned to protect. The mission was fraught with danger, and losses were significant. A harsh report soon suggested that the squadron should be pulled from combat, a recommendation that echoed the racial biases of the time. Yet Colonel Benjamin O. Davis Jr. stood firm, advocating for his men when many would have given up. By September of that year, the tides began to turn. Under Davis's leadership, the 332nd received upgraded aircraft, including the powerful P-47 Thunderbolts and the iconic P-51 Mustangs. This upgrade was not just a change in equipment, it symbolized a shift in strategy. Davis introduced a doctrine that prioritized the safety of the bombers over individual kills. The focus was clear: protect the men in the bombers, and the victory would follow. As the squadron flew approximately 200 missions between June 1944 and April 1945, their reputation soared. They became known as the Red Tail Angels, a name that echoed from the airfields of Europe back to the hearts of the American people. They successfully escorted about 15,000 bombers without losing a single one, fostering an unshakable confidence among their comrades in arms. The Luftwaffe, on the other hand, was forced to reckon with an unexpected psychological warfare. The mere sight of the red tails flying overhead began to chip away at their morale, instilling fear and uncertainty. The Tuskegee Airmen didn't just achieve military success, they shattered the long-standing racist narratives entrenched in the military and society at large. Their bravery and skill in the skies demonstrated that valor knows no color, challenging perceptions not just on the battlefield but in the hearts of a nation. With each mission, they carved out a new legacy, one that would inspire generations to come. As the war drew to a close, the legacy of the Tuskegee Airmen was solidified not only through their aerial prowess, but through the profound impact they had on the fight for civil rights. Their story was more than one of combat. It was a testament to resilience, unity, and the unyielding spirit of those who dare to dream of a better tomorrow. If you want to discover more stories like this one, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. The world may have been at war, but the true battle for justice and equality was just beginning. The Tuskegee Airmen had not only broken the morale of the Luftwaffe without firing a shot, they had ignited a spark of change that would resonate through the ages, proving that courage and conviction could indeed alter the course of history. As the Allied forces advanced through Europe, the Tuskegee Airmen found themselves in the midst of a pivotal shift, not only in the war, but in societal attitudes. With their reputation firmly established, the Red Tails were now routinely assigned to escort vital bombing missions over heavily fortified enemy territories. Each flight was a high-stakes operation, but for the Tuskegee pilots it was more than just a job. It was a chance to affirm their place in history and fight against the injustices that plagued their own country. In the cockpit of their P-51 Mustangs, the airmen felt a profound sense of purpose. They were not just flying for military supremacy, they were fighting for respect, dignity, and equality. Their presence transformed the skies. No longer were they merely a unit of color, but a symbol of excellence and bravery. This shift in perception was palpable, not only among their fellow American pilots, but also among the enemy. Reports began to surface from Luftwaffe pilots expressing dismay at the effectiveness of the red tails. The fear they instilled became a weapon of its own, as enemy pilots hesitated, uncertain of their own abilities when facing these formidable adversaries. Back at home, the impact of the Tuskegee Airmen rippled through African-American communities. As news of their accomplishments spread, young men and women began to envision futures previously thought unattainable. The airmen became role models, inspiring a wave of activism that sought to dismantle segregation and inequality in the United States. Organizations such as the NAACP gained momentum, fueled by the undeniable proof that African Americans could excel in any arena, including the most dangerous and revered, the skies. As the war neared its climax, the Tuskegee Airmen faced their most challenging missions yet. Bombing raids over Germany intensified, and the stakes were higher than ever. Each sortie brought with it the weight of expectation, not just from their commanders, but from the African American community, who saw them as pioneers in a fight for justice. The pressure was immense, but it only strengthened their resolve. They flew with an unyielding spirit, determined to protect their fellow soldiers and uphold the honor of their race. In the midst of this, unexpected developments emerged. The Luftwaffe began to adapt their tactics, shifting their focus to undermining the morale of the Red Tails. Psychological warfare took center stage as the enemy spread propaganda aimed at discrediting the Tuskegee Airmen, claiming they were mere tokens of racial equality rather than skilled pilots. However, such tactics only fueled the airmen's determination. Instead of crumbling under the pressure, they united even more closely, sharing stories of resilience and hope before each mission. Their camaraderie became an unbreakable bond, fortified by the shared understanding of their unique role in history. In the final months of the war, the impact of the Tuskegee Airmen reached a crescendo. They completed over 1,500 missions and were credited with the destruction of numerous enemy aircraft. Yet, their greatest achievement was not measured in victories, but in the hearts and minds they changed. The war ended, and amid the celebrations, a new fight began, one rooted in the civil rights movement that would sweep across the nation. The Tuskegee Airmen had laid the groundwork for this revolution, demonstrating that bravery and excellence could not be confined by the color of one's skin. As they returned home, they were met with a hero's welcome, but they knew their work was far from over. They had broken the Luftwaffe's morale without firing a shot, but the battle for equality and justice in America was only just beginning. With their legacy firmly planted in the annals of history, the Tuskegee Airmen prepared to take to the skies once more, this time as advocates for change, ready to fight for a world where valor and integrity transcended race. Their journey was a powerful reminder that true courage lies not just in the heat of battle, but in the relentless pursuit of a better tomorrow for all. As the war officially came to an end in 1945, the Tuskegee Airmen found themselves at a crossroads. The camaraderie and discipline they had cultivated in the skies over Europe were about to be put to the test once more, but this time it would be in a different arena, one where the stakes were equally high, yet less defined. Returning to a country still rife with racial segregation and discrimination, the airmen, now celebrated heroes, faced a harsh reality. The service they had rendered was a testament to their capabilities, yet they were often met with paradoxical recognition. While their achievements were lauded in military circles, they still encountered hostility and prejudice in their own communities. The contrast between the accolades they received and the segregation they faced starkly illustrated the duality of their existence. Determined to leverage their newfound status, the Tuskegee Airmen began to engage with civil rights groups, sharing their experiences and insights from the war. They understood that their triumphs could serve as powerful narratives against the backdrop of injustice. They convened in community halls and churches, speaking passionately about the importance of unity and the need for systemic change. Their stories resonated deeply with those who had long fought against the status quo, igniting a spark of hope and motivation among veterans and civilians alike. In 1948, President Harry Truman issued Executive Order 9981, which desegregated the armed forces. The Tuskegee Airmen had played a pivotal role in this decision, their exemplary performance serving as a compelling argument for equality. However, the fight for civil rights was just beginning, and the airmen recognized that their mission extended beyond military service. They began to see themselves as pioneers in a larger struggle, one that encompassed all facets of American life. As they navigated this new chapter, the airmen faced resistance from those who felt threatened by the prospect of change. Some former allies turned into adversaries, questioning their motives and calling into question the validity of their experiences. Yet instead of shrinking away from the confrontation, the airmen stood firm, relying on the same resilience that had carried them through the war. They organized rallies, participated in marches, and advocated for policies that would dismantle institutional barriers. Their efforts began to yield tangible results. Communities that had once been divided started to come together, united by a shared vision of equality and justice. Schools began to integrate, and public spaces opened their doors to all, regardless of race. The airmen became symbols of progress, their legacy echoing through the very fabric of the civil rights movement. As they looked back on their journey, the Tuskegee Airmen understood that the battles fought in the skies were only the beginning. They had broken the Luftwaffe's morale without firing a shot, but they now took aim at a more significant adversary, the deep-seated racism that plagued their nation. With each small victory, they inspired future generations to continue the fight. The lessons learned in the cockpit became the guiding principles of their activism: unity, bravery, and the unwavering belief that change was not only possible, but essential. They transformed their personal stories of struggle into a collective narrative that challenged the status quo and inspired others to join them in their quest for justice. In the years that followed, their legacy only grew stronger. The Tuskegee Airmen became part of the fabric of American history. Their contributions celebrated not just for their military prowess, but for their commitment to equality and justice. They had not only broken the morale of an enemy in wartime, but had also shattered the chains of oppression back home, lighting the way for a brighter future. The skies were no longer the only domain of the brave. They had opened the door for all to soar, free from the constraints of prejudice. As the war pressed on, the Tuskegee Airmen found themselves in the spotlight, not only as skilled pilots but as pioneers in a fight against discrimination. Their success in protecting bombers and completing missions without losing a single aircraft became a source of pride, resonating far beyond the airfields of Europe. The narrative of their triumph spread, igniting hope among African Americans and allies who longed for change. With the war nearing its end, the airmen returned home to a country still steeped in segregation and prejudice. Yet, they were not the same men who had left. They had tasted victory and resilience, and they were determined to leverage their newfound status. The experience in the skies had transformed them into advocates for change, and they began organizing community meetings to share their stories and inspire action. During these gatherings, the veterans recounted their experiences, emphasizing not only their military achievements, but the unity that had fueled their success. They spoke of the camaraderie forged in the face of adversity, encouraging attendees to stand together against injustice. This grassroots movement slowly gained momentum, drawing in men and women from all walks of life, united by a common desire for equality. In the years that followed, the Tuskegee Airmen became instrumental in the burgeoning civil rights movement. They utilized their fame to garner support for desegregation initiatives, becoming heavily involved in organizations that pushed for legislative change. Their advocacy was not without challenges. They faced backlash and opposition from those who sought to maintain the status quo. However, the airmen remained steadfast, drawing strength from their shared experiences in combat. They recognized that their military success had not only challenged the enemy abroad, but also shattered stereotypes at home. The image of the red tail angels, skilled pilots who had defied the odds, was a powerful tool in their fight for civil rights. They participated in rallies, spoke at schools, and engaged with local leaders, emphasizing the need for systemic change. Their message was clear: if they could overcome the obstacles in the skies, then the barriers of racial injustice could also be dismantled. In 1948, President Harry Truman signed Executive Order 9981, desegregating the armed forces. The airmen celebrated this victory, knowing that their efforts had played a role in this pivotal moment in history. Yet they understood that the fight was far from over. They continued to advocate for civil rights, pushing for integration in schools, public spaces, and the workforce. As the 1960s approached, the airmen found themselves at the forefront of a movement that was gaining national attention. They stood alongside figures like Martin Luther King Jr., participating in marches and demonstrations that called for equality and justice. Their presence symbolized the bridge between military valor and civil activism, inspiring countless individuals to join the fight. The legacy of the Tuskegee Airmen continued to grow as they became mentors for younger generations. They established scholarships and mentorship programs, ensuring that their story would live on and inspire future leaders. Their commitment to education and empowerment became a cornerstone of their mission, emphasizing that knowledge and unity were key to dismantling systemic racism. As they looked back on their journey, the Tuskegee Airmen understood that their impact extended beyond the battlefields of Europe. They had ignited a flame of change that would illuminate the path for generations to come. The fight for equality, once a distant dream, was now a reality within reach, and the airmen's legacy served as a testament to the power of courage, resilience, and the unwavering belief that justice would prevail. As the Tuskegee Airmen returned home, their newfound recognition was both a source of pride and a reminder of the struggles that lay ahead. The war had forged a bond among them, but it also served as a catalyst for change in their own communities. With their military service now celebrated, they began to channel their energies into advocating for justice, recognizing that their fight for equality was as critical as their fight against fascism. In 1946, as they transitioned to civilian life, the airmen encountered the stark realities of segregation that persisted throughout America. Disheartened but undeterred, they convened to strategize how best to leverage their visibility and experiences. They organized community meetings, sharing their stories of valor and resilience, encouraging others to stand up against the injustices they had once faced. Their message was clear: the courage demonstrated in the skies must also be mirrored on the ground. In 1948, President Harry S. Truman signed Executive Order 9981, which mandated the desegregation of the armed forces. This monumental step was influenced by the airmen's extraordinary achievements and the mounting pressure from civil rights activists. The Tuskegee Airmen saw this as a pivotal victory, yet they understood that desegregation was just the beginning. They recognized that true equality required more than just policy change. It necessitated a cultural shift. With their military accolades now enhancing their credibility, several airmen took on leadership roles within civil rights organizations. They marched alongside prominent activists, using their status to amplify calls for justice. Their voices were heard in town halls and state capitals, where they rallied for voting rights, fair housing, and equal opportunities in education and employment. The airmen's narratives of heroism became powerful tools in the fight against systemic racism. In 1954, the landmark Supreme Court ruling in Brown v. Board of Education declared racial segregation in public schools unconstitutional. This decision was a beacon of hope, but the airmen knew that the work was far from over. They established mentorship programs for African American youth, emphasizing the importance of education and community involvement. By sharing their journeys, they inspired the next generation to dream big and pursue their aspirations, no matter the obstacles. As the civil rights movement gained momentum, the airmen found themselves increasingly involved in grassroots efforts. They organized rallies, participated in sit-ins, and supported campaigns aimed at dismantling discriminatory laws. Their presence provided a sense of legitimacy and hope, showing that change was possible through collective action. In the late 1960s, as the movement reached a crescendo, the airmen reflected on their own experiences and the sacrifices made along the way. They began to write their memoirs, documenting not just their wartime exploits, but the battles fought for equality in the decades following. These stories became vital resources, shedding light on the complexities of race relations in America and the ongoing struggle for civil rights. The Tuskegee Airmen's legacy continued to evolve, inspiring not only their contemporaries, but also future generations. Schools began to include their stories in curricula, ensuring that the lessons of courage, resilience, and determination would not be forgotten. As they aged, the airmen became revered elders in the community, passing down their wisdom and experiences to young activists. Their impact extended beyond the borders of the United States. The airmen's story resonated with oppressed peoples worldwide, from the struggles in South Africa to the civil rights movements in Latin America. They became symbols of resistance and hope, proving that the fight for justice knows no boundaries. In their twilight years, the Tuskegee Airmen gathered at reunions, reminiscing about their shared experiences and the comradeship forged in the skies. They celebrated not only their military achievements, but the broader societal changes they had inspired. Their legacy was not just about breaking the Luftwaffe's morale without firing a shot, but about igniting a movement that would continue to challenge injustice and promote equality for generations to come. As the Tuskegee Airmen continued to soar through the skies, their burgeoning reputation began to seep into the hearts and minds of those on the ground in Europe. The Germans, initially dismissive of the Red Tail Angels, soon found themselves grappling with the psychological impact of facing pilots who not only demonstrated exceptional skill, but also carried the weight of a significant legacy. This shift in morale took root in the Luftwaffe, as reports trickled back to high command, detailing encounters with these formidable pilots. The airmen's strategic prowess became their most potent weapon. With each mission, they executed their new doctrine with precision, escorting bombers deep into enemy territory while maintaining a disciplined formation. The sight of the P-51 Mustangs, adorned with their distinctive red tails, became a harbinger of safety for American bombers. Pilots from the 8th Air Force, once wary of their black counterparts, began to forge bonds of camaraderie as they shared the skies. Stories of their prowess spread like wildfire through the ranks, elevating the morale of the Allied forces. Back home, the narrative surrounding the Tuskegee Airmen began to shift. Media coverage transitioned from skepticism to celebration. Films and news articles highlighted their achievements, showcasing the remarkable contrast between the airmen's success and the prejudice they had faced. This newfound visibility not only bolstered the spirits of African Americans across the nation, but also served as a catalyst for broader discussions on equality and civil rights. Leaders in the African American community harnessed this momentum, organizing rallies and discussions that drew from the airmen's triumphs as a symbol of hope and resilience. The airmen themselves faced the bittersweet realities of war. Each successful mission brought a mix of pride and mourning as they remembered fallen comrades. They held memorials, honoring their brothers who had given everything for a cause greater than themselves. These gatherings strengthened their bonds, reminding them of the collective struggle they shared, not just in the air, but also in their fight against racial injustice on the ground. As the war drew to a close, the airmen returned home as heroes, yet they knew their battle was far from over. The societal changes they had catalyzed during the war were just the beginning. With the nation still deeply segregated, the airmen emerged as influential figures in the civil rights movement. They took to the streets, advocating for desegregation in schools and the military, challenging discriminatory practices, and standing firmly against the injustices that still permeated American society. Their experiences in combat informed their activism. They understood that the fight for equality required courage and strategy, similar to what they had employed in the skies. They became mentors to a new generation of leaders, instilling in them the importance of resilience and the necessity of unity in the face of adversity. The stories of their aerial victories transformed into lessons of perseverance, inspiring future civil rights activists to dream bigger and fight harder. In the decades that followed, the legacy of the Tuskegee Airmen became intertwined with the broader narrative of American history. Statues were erected, schools named in their honor, and their stories immortalized in books and documentaries. They were no longer merely pilots. They had become icons of justice, embodying the relentless pursuit of equality. As they looked back on their journey, the airmen realized that they had achieved something far more profound than tactical victories in the air. They had instigated a change in hearts and minds, proving that heroism transcends the battlefield. Their legacy endured not just in the annals of military history, but as a beacon of hope for a more equitable world, echoing the truth that one does not need to fire a shot to break the chains of oppression. As the Tuskegee Airmen solidified their reputation in the European theater, their influence extended beyond the cockpit, becoming a powerful symbol of resilience and hope. The success of the 332nd Fighter Group in escorting bombers without losing a single aircraft began to resonate deeply within the military and back home on the American front. Their achievements challenged the deeply ingrained racial stereotypes of the time, prompting discussions about integration and equality that had previously seemed impossible. In the command rooms of the Luftwaffe, the increasing effectiveness of the Red Tails was not lost on German strategists. The pilots' precise formations and disciplined tactics began to instill fear among enemy pilots, who had not only to contend with skilled aviators, but also with the potent symbolism of their presence. The Luftwaffe's morale, once buoyed by the belief in their superiority, began to wane as they faced the unwavering resolve of the Tuskegee Airmen. Rumors circulated among German pilots about encountering the angels in the skies, men who fought not just for their country, but for their dignity and the promise of equality. As the war progressed, the stories of the airmen became more than just tales of aerial encounters. They morphed into narratives of defiance and hope. Back in the United States, the black community, inspired by the airmen's courage, began to organize more fervently. Civil rights leaders like A. Philip Randolph and Bayard Rustin recognized the pivotal role the airmen played in both the military and the civil rights movement. They understood that the bravery displayed in the skies could be paralleled with the fight for justice on the ground. In 1945, as the tide of war turned, the airmen were called upon to engage in more complex missions. They were no longer just escorts. They had become integral to the Allied strategy, tasked with disrupting supply lines and targeting enemy installations. Each successful mission further eroded the confidence of the Luftwaffe, challenging the very foundations of their belief in racial superiority. Back in the United States, the impact of their accomplishments was felt in the halls of Congress. Advocacy for desegregation in the military gained momentum, with the stories of the Tuskegee Airmen used as powerful testaments to the capabilities of black service members. The political landscape began to shift, and a new dialogue emerged, one that recognized the contributions of African Americans and questioned the rationale behind segregation. As the war drew to a close in Europe, the airmen returned home not just as heroes of the skies, but as pivotal figures in a changing society. They were celebrated in parades and awarded medals, but the accolades were layered with an understanding that their fight was far from over. Many of them, emboldened by their experiences, took up the mantle of leadership in the burgeoning civil rights movement. They spoke at rallies, participated in protests, and became mentors to younger activists, sharing their experiences and insights. In the years that followed, the legacy of the Tuskegee Airmen would serve as a catalyst for change. Their courage in the face of adversity inspired the desegregation of the military in 1948, a monumental step towards equality. The airmen had not only excelled in combat, but had also laid the groundwork for a broader struggle for civil rights, proving that change could be achieved without the need for violence. As they reflected on their journey, the Tuskegee Airmen understood that their greatest achievement was not merely the defeat of enemy aircraft, but the breaking of barriers and the forging of a path towards a more just society. Their story became a testament to the idea that true heroism is not defined by the battles fought, but by the lives changed and the futures shaped. The echoes of their legacy continued to resonate, reminding generations to come that courage and resilience can shift the tides of history without ever firing a shot. As the Tuskegee Airmen returned home, the atmosphere in America was charged with the promise of change. The nation had witnessed their incredible feats in the skies, and now their story began to intertwine with the burgeoning civil rights movement. The airmen, once mere pilots, transformed into symbols of hope and resilience, their achievements serving as a rallying cry for those seeking justice and equality. In the early years following the war, the airmen found themselves in a landscape still marred by segregation and inequality. Many of them resumed civilian lives, yet the indelible mark of their service propelled them into activism. They organized speaking engagements across the country, sharing their first-hand accounts of bravery, camaraderie, and the barriers they had shattered. Their presence at rallies became a source of inspiration, as they urged younger generations to fight for their rights and strive for a society where skin color did not dictate one's opportunities. In 1948, President Harry S. Truman issued Executive Order 9981, desegregating the armed forces, a victory that many attribute to the unyielding spirit of the Tuskegee Airmen. The news reverberated through the nation, igniting celebrations among civil rights activists. The airmen, however, understood that this was only the beginning. Alongside their comrades, they continued to advocate for broader civil rights reforms, stressing that military desegregation must be complemented by changes in education, employment, and housing. Their influence extended into politics as well. Several former airmen ran for local and state offices, seeking to enact laws that would ensure equality and justice for all citizens. They became mentors to young leaders, instilling in them the belief that perseverance and unity could lead to profound change. The Airmen's legacy inspired organizations like the NAACP and the Urban League, fostering a collaborative spirit among civil rights groups. In the years that followed, their story was immortalized in literature and film, capturing the imagination of a new generation. Documentaries and biopics explored the trials they faced and the victories they achieved, shedding light on their pivotal role in shaping modern America. Schools began to include their achievements in curricula, ensuring that future generations would understand the significance of their contributions. As the 1960s rolled in, the civil rights movement gained momentum, and the airmen found themselves at the forefront of many pivotal events. They marched alongside Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and other leaders, their presence serving as a testament to the power of courage and unity. They understood the importance of nonviolence, having faced their own battles in the skies without ever having to resort to aggression against their foes. Their experiences forged a deep belief that moral integrity and resilience could change hearts and minds. As they gathered for reunions, the airmen shared stories of their past, laughter mingling with tears as they reflected on their journey. They remembered not only the planes they flew, but the lives they touched, the friendships that transcended race and background, the communities they uplifted, and the barriers they dismantled. Each tale became a thread in the fabric of their legacy, a reminder that while they had fought for the skies, their true battle was for the hearts of their fellow Americans. As the nation evolved, the Tuskegee Airmen remained a vital reminder of the power of hope, perseverance, and unity. Their story echoed through the halls of history, instilling in future generations the belief that true change arises from courage and conviction. And so, without ever firing a shot, the Tuskegee Airmen had not only broken the Luftwaffe's morale, but had also laid the groundwork for a new America, one where the colors of freedom and equality would forever be intertwined. As the years passed, the legacy of the Tuskegee Airmen continued to resonate beyond the confines of military history. Their remarkable achievements during the war served as a catalyst for change, not only in the armed forces, but also in American society at large. The narrative of their courage, skill, and determination began to inspire a broader civil rights movement, illustrating the profound impact that individuals can have when they stand firm against adversity. In the wake of their service, the airmen became ambassadors of change, sharing their experiences with schools, community centers, and civic organizations. They spoke of their struggles, not just in the cockpit, but in a society that often refused to recognize their humanity. Their stories transformed from mere accounts of combat into powerful lessons on resilience and dignity. Each speech became an opportunity to highlight the importance of equality, urging younger generations to continue the fight for justice. The once dubious perception of black pilots began to shift dramatically. Newspapers and magazines that had once cast skepticism upon their capabilities now celebrated their successes. Documentaries and films began to emerge, chronicling their journey and further embedding their story in the national consciousness. The moniker Red Tail Angels became synonymous not just with exceptional flying, but with the broader struggle for civil rights, a symbol of hope that transcended race and background. In 1948, President Harry S. Truman signed Executive Order 9981, which mandated the desegregation of the military. Many attributed this landmark decision to the valiant efforts and undeniable success of the Tuskegee Airmen. The airmen had not only proven their prowess in the air, but had also played a crucial role in challenging the systemic racism that had long plagued the nation. Their bravery laid the foundation for future generations of service members, ensuring that talent and dedication would be recognized above all else. As the civil rights movement gained momentum in the 1950s and 1960s, the Tuskegee Airmen became key figures, participating in marches and rallies, standing shoulder to shoulder with emerging leaders like Rosa Parks and Malcolm X. They understood that their fight had extended far beyond the battlefield. It was now a mission to dismantle the barriers of segregation and discrimination that still existed in all facets of life. In the late 1970s, as the airmen gathered for a reunion in Washington, D.C., they were greeted with a level of respect and admiration that many had never envisioned during their early years of service. Veterans from diverse backgrounds shared their appreciation for the trail-blazing paths the airmen had carved. The event was a celebration of camaraderie, but also a solemn reminder of the sacrifices made and the work that remained. The airmen's commitment to education and mentorship became a cornerstone of their post-war legacy. They established scholarships and mentorship programs for young black aviators, ensuring that the skies would be open to all, regardless of background. They emphasized the importance of education, discipline, and perseverance, instilling in their mentees the values that had guided them through the trials of war and prejudice. As the decades rolled on, the Tuskegee Airmen's influence continued to expand, culminating in recognition at the highest levels of government. In 2007, they were awarded the Congressional Gold Medal, an honor that reflected not only their military accomplishments, but their enduring impact on the fabric of American society. The ceremony was a poignant reminder of how far the nation had come, yet it also served as a call to action, urging all Americans to remain vigilant in the pursuit of equality and justice. The narrative of the Tuskegee Airmen is not merely a historical account of bravery. It is a testament to the transformative power of courage, unity, and moral integrity. Their legacy reminds us that true change is achieved not through violence, but through the unwavering belief in the possibility of a better tomorrow. With each story shared, every life touched, and every barrier dismantled, the Tuskegee Airmen ensured that their fight for the skies, for equality and for justice, would continue to inspire generations to come. As the dust settled on the battlefields of Europe and the echoes of gunfire faded into history, the Tuskegee Airmen found themselves at a crossroads. Their aerial victories had not only safeguarded countless bomber crews, but had also shattered the preconceived notions of their capabilities. However, the war's end did not mark the conclusion of their journey. Rather, it heralded a new chapter in their lives, one that demanded the same courage they had exhibited in the skies. Returning home, many of the airmen faced a society still rife with segregation and inequality. They brought with them not only their military honors, but also a profound sense of responsibility to fight for civil rights on the ground. They became active participants in the burgeoning civil rights movement, recognizing that the battles they had fought overseas were intrinsically linked to the struggles faced by Black Americans at home. The airmen organized and participated in rallies, leveraging their status as war heroes to draw attention to injustices. Their collective voice grew louder, demanding integration in schools, workplaces, and neighborhoods. They understood that their legacy extended beyond their military achievements. It was about dismantling the systemic barriers that had long oppressed their communities. One pivotal moment came in 1948, when President Harry S. Truman issued Executive Order 9981, desegregating the armed forces. The airmen's unwavering advocacy and their exemplary record of service were instrumental in this historic decision. They had proven, through their actions and valor, that the color of one's skin did not determine one's ability to serve and protect. As the civil rights movement gained momentum in the 1960s, the Tuskegee Airmen continued to inspire new generations. They became mentors to young activists, sharing their experiences and emphasizing the importance of resilience and unity. Their stories became a source of strength for those who dared to dream of a more equitable society. In schools across the nation, the airmen were celebrated not just as military pioneers, but as symbols of hope and change. Their legacy was woven into textbooks, documentaries, and public speeches, ensuring that the lessons of their bravery and commitment to justice would not be forgotten. As the nation grappled with issues of race and equality, the airmen remained steadfast advocates for progress. They participated in marches, spoke at universities, and met with lawmakers, urging them to honor the sacrifices made by so many for the sake of freedom and equality. Their presence was a reminder that the fight for civil rights was not just a struggle of the past. It was an ongoing journey that required the participation of all Americans. In 2007, when the Congressional Gold Medal was awarded, it was not merely a recognition of their military service, it was a celebration of their enduring spirit and the impact they had made on the nation's conscience. During the ceremony, the airmen, now older and wiser, reflected on their journey. From the skies over Europe to the civil rights battles they had fought at home, they understood that their legacy was not solely about personal achievement. It was about paving the way for future generations to soar, unencumbered by the chains of prejudice. The Tuskegee Airmen's story is one of resilience, transformation, and the relentless pursuit of justice. It teaches us that breaking barriers requires not only courage in battle, but also a commitment to uplift others. Their legacy continues to inspire individuals to challenge the status quo, reminding us all that true victory lies in the collective fight for equality and human dignity. Through their actions, they showed that real change does not demand violence. It calls for unwavering belief in the possibility of a better tomorrow, grounded in unity and hope. As the war in Europe raged on, the Tuskegee Airmen found themselves not only as pilots, but also as symbols of resilience and hope. The skies above Germany became a theater where their unwavering spirit began to shift the tides of morale, not only among their allies, but also within the ranks of the Luftwaffe. With each successful mission, they transformed skepticism into respect and fear into admiration. In the summer of 1944, the 332nd Fighter Group undertook a series of critical escort missions that would become legendary. Their reputation as red-tail angels grew, not just because of their striking red-tailed aircraft, but due to their remarkable strategy and unwavering commitment to protect the bombers they were assigned to guard. Each mission was a carefully orchestrated dance of precision and teamwork that allowed them to shield thousands of bombers from enemy fire. The airmen's tactical innovations included formations that maximized their coverage and minimized exposure to enemy attacks, a tactic that would come to define their operations. As they executed their missions, the Tuskegee Airmen unknowingly began to chip away at the psychological barriers of the Luftwaffe. German pilots, trained to expect inferiority from their opponents, found themselves outmaneuvered and outsmarted by the very men they had been led to believe were incapable of such prowess. This dissonance sowed seeds of doubt within the enemy ranks. Luftwaffe pilots began questioning their own superiority, a sentiment that would ripple through their ranks and impact their combat effectiveness. The pivotal moment arrived during a crucial bombing campaign over Berlin. The Allies launched a massive assault, and the 332nd was called in to escort a fleet of bombers deep into enemy territory. As they flew into the heart of danger, the Tuskegee Airmen held firm, executing their missions with unwavering focus. They engaged in dogfights that showcased their skills, but their true triumph was in the way they protected the bombers, ensuring that none were lost that day. News of their success spread like wildfire. Reports from the front lines highlighted not only their tactical brilliance, but also their ability to maintain composure under extreme pressure. The 332nd Fighter Group had become a source of inspiration not just for their fellow American troops, but for many soldiers throughout the Allied forces. They had turned the narrative of African-American inferiority on its head, showcasing that bravery and skill knew no color. Amidst this backdrop of triumph, the airmen remained acutely aware of their responsibilities. They understood that their victories were not just for personal glory, but served a greater purpose: to challenge the deeply entrenched racism that had plagued their country. They recognized that each flight, each successful mission, was a step towards dismantling the barriers that held their community back. As they returned home, the stories of their heroics brought attention to the need for integration in the military, sparking conversations that had long been silenced. Their achievements led to a slow but significant shift in public perception. People began to advocate for equality, citing the airmen as proof that talent and bravery were not confined to any race. The end of the war marked not just a victory over tyranny abroad, but the beginning of a new chapter in the fight for civil rights at home. The Tuskegee Airmen transitioned from warriors in the skies to advocates for change on the ground. With their newfound recognition, they engaged in speaking tours, met with lawmakers, and inspired the next generation to continue the fight for equality. Their story became a beacon of hope, illustrating that true change often requires unwavering courage, unity, and above all the belief that a better tomorrow is possible. Through their actions, they had not only broken the morale of the Luftwaffe without firing a shot, but they had also laid the groundwork for a future where dignity and respect would be afforded to all, regardless of color. The legacy of the Tuskegee Airmen would endure, reminding generations to come that the skies were not the limit, they were merely the beginning. As the war drew to a close, the Tuskegee Airmen found themselves not only celebrated as brave pilots, but also recognized as symbols of resilience in the face of adversity. Their success in the skies had become a crucial part of the narrative surrounding the fight against fascism, drawing parallels between the struggle for freedom abroad and the fight for civil rights at home. With each mission successfully executed, they dismantled not only enemy aircraft, but also the stereotypes that had long confined African Americans to the margins of society. As the airmen returned to the United States, their experiences and the stories of their valor began to ripple through communities. They joined local organizations advocating for civil rights, sharing their experiences to galvanize support for the desegregation of the military and beyond. The airmen recognized that their battle was far from over. The fight for equality continued on the ground. Their achievements became a rallying cry for those who had long been denied basic rights, and they found themselves at the forefront of a burgeoning movement. In the years following the war, the Tuskegee Airmen faced the challenge of translating their military accomplishments into societal change. They organized public events, drawing crowds eager to hear about their experiences. At one such event, a young audience member stood up and asked how they could help continue the fight for justice. The airmen, inspired by the enthusiasm of the younger generation, began mentoring youth leaders, instilling in them the importance of advocacy and activism. As the nation grappled with the aftermath of the war, President Harry Truman made a historic decision. He issued Executive Order 9981, which mandated the desegregation of the military. The airmen's success had proven that integration was not only possible, but beneficial. The ripple effect of their bravery in combat had contributed to a monumental shift in policy, highlighting how the courage displayed in the air could influence legislation on the ground. As the civil rights movement gained momentum in the 1950s and 1960s, the Tuskegee Airmen were often called upon to lend their voices and experiences to the cause. They participated in rallies, spoke at universities, and collaborated with leaders like Martin Luther King Jr., emphasizing the inherent link between their fight for recognition in the military and the broader struggle for equality. Their stories became integral to the narrative of civil rights, showcasing the triumph of the human spirit against systemic oppression. With every engagement, the Tuskegee Airmen continued to inspire a new generation of activists. They shared not just tales of aerial combat, but also the lessons learned from their experiences about unity, perseverance, and the importance of standing up for what is right. Their legacy transcended the battlefield, becoming a source of hope for countless individuals who were still facing discrimination and injustice. As they aged, many of the airmen reflected on their journeys, noting that while their wartime missions had ended, their commitment to fighting for equality was far from complete. They established scholarships and mentorship programs, ensuring that the next generation would have the tools necessary to continue the work they had begun. The Tuskegee Airmen understood that their story was not just about their individual successes, but about paving the way for a future where all people could soar to greatness, unencumbered by the chains of prejudice. In the end, the impact of the Tuskegee Airmen extended far beyond the battlefields of Europe. They had not only disrupted the morale of the Luftwaffe without firing a shot, but had also ignited a flame of hope that would illuminate the path toward equality for generations to come. Their legacy serves as a testament to the power of courage, resilience, and the unyielding belief in a just world. The skies may have been where they fought, but it was on the ground, through advocacy, education, and unwavering commitment to justice, where they truly changed the course of history. As the Tuskegee Airmen returned home, their stories became intertwined with the broader narrative of civil rights in America. They were celebrated as heroes, but they also faced the reality of a nation still grappling with racial inequities. Eager to leverage their newfound recognition, they began collaborating with civil rights organizations, using their experiences to advocate for equality and justice. In the years following the war, the airmen organized speaking tours across the country, visiting schools and community centers to engage with young people. They shared not only their wartime experiences, but also the importance of perseverance in the face of adversity. These interactions sparked a renewed sense of purpose among the audience, igniting in them a desire to be agents of change within their own communities. The airmen emphasized that heroism wasn't just about valor in combat, it was also about standing up against injustice and fighting for the rights of all people. As the 1950s unfolded, the airmen witnessed the burgeoning civil rights movement gaining momentum. They felt a deep connection to the movement, recognizing that their own battles had laid the groundwork for future activism. Many joined organizations like the NAACP and the Urban League, where they used their influence to advocate for policies that promoted racial equality. Their voices resonated in courtrooms, legislative halls, and on the streets, where they marched alongside others, demanding an end to segregation and discrimination. In 1954, the landmark Supreme Court case, Brown versus Board of Education, declared racial segregation in public schools unconstitutional. The airmen saw this as a victory not just for African Americans, but for the ideals they had fought for during the war. They understood that the fight for justice extended beyond the battlefield, and they committed themselves to seeing this change through, even in the face of resistance. As the civil rights movement gained traction, the Tuskegee Airmen decided to take their advocacy a step further. They established the Tuskegee Airmen Memorial Scholarship Fund, aimed at providing financial assistance to African American students pursuing careers in aviation and related fields. They understood that education was a powerful tool for empowerment, and they wanted to ensure that the next generation would have the opportunities they had fought so hard to earn. In the late 1960s, the airmen faced a new challenge as the nation confronted the Vietnam War. Many of them, despite their achievements, were dismayed by the ongoing racial injustices within the military and society at large. They recognized that the struggle for equality was far from over, and they began to advocate for the rights of African American soldiers serving in Vietnam. They spoke out against discrimination in the armed forces and called for equitable treatment of all service members, regardless of race. With each passing year, the Tuskegee Airmen's legacy continued to grow, and their impact was felt far beyond the realm of aviation. They inspired a generation of leaders, activists, and everyday citizens who were determined to dismantle the systemic barriers that had long oppressed them. Their courage in the skies had shattered the myth of inferiority, but their work on the ground was equally transformative. As the airmen aged, they remained deeply committed to their mission. They mentored young pilots, sharing invaluable insights about resilience and determination. They also participated in numerous commemorative events, ensuring that their stories were preserved for future generations. Each gathering served as a reminder of the sacrifices made and the battles won, but also of the ongoing fight for justice and equality. Ultimately, the Tuskegee Airmen exemplified the idea that true heroism transcends combat. They had not only broken the morale of the Luftwaffe without firing a shot, but had also laid the groundwork for a movement that would change the fabric of American society. Their legacy was a testament to the power of courage, perseverance, and the unwavering belief that a just world was not only possible but worth fighting for. As they moved into their twilight years, the airmen understood that their journey was not just about their past, it was about the future they continued to inspire. As the Tuskegee Airmen transitioned into their post-war lives, the impact of their service became increasingly evident in various spheres of society. The end of World War II did not signal the end of their fight. Rather, it marked the beginning of a new chapter in their legacy. In the years following their return home, many airmen took on leadership roles within their communities. They became advocates for civil rights, using their experiences from the war to challenge the pervasive racism that still existed in America. They organized rallies, spoke at schools, and wrote articles that highlighted the need for equality. Their credibility as war heroes lent weight to their messages, and they were determined to ensure that the sacrifices they had made would not be forgotten. One significant development was the formation of local chapters of the Tuskegee Airmen organization. These chapters became hubs for mentorship and community engagement, fostering a sense of unity among African Americans striving for progress. The airmen shared their stories with younger generations, instilling in them a sense of pride and ambition. They emphasized that the fight for equality required both courage and perseverance, traits they had honed during their time in the skies. As the civil rights movement gained momentum in the 1950s and 1960s, the airmen's legacy became intertwined with the larger struggle for justice. Their example of excellence in a segregated military served as a powerful counter-narrative to the prevailing stereotypes about Black Americans. The media began to take notice, showcasing their stories and honoring their contributions, which helped to shift public perception. The Red Tail Angels, as they were affectionately known, became symbols of hope and resilience. Simultaneously, the military began to recognize the importance of integrating its ranks. The success of the Tuskegee Airmen played a pivotal role in President Harry Truman's decision to desegregate the armed forces in 1948. This landmark change not only transformed the military, but also set a precedent for integration across various sectors of American life. The airmen had proven that capability and valor were not confined to race, and their advocacy continued to resonate in the halls of power. In the years that followed, the airmen faced new challenges. Many struggled with the transition to civilian life, grappling with the trauma of war and the complexities of a changing society. Yet they remained steadfast in their mission. They established scholarships for aspiring pilots and worked tirelessly to promote education in the fields of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics among young Black students. Their commitment to uplifting future generations demonstrated that their legacy was not merely about their past accomplishments, but also about paving the way for others. As they aged, the airmen often gathered for reunions, sharing laughter and stories that reflected both their camaraderie and the burdens they had carried. These gatherings served as a reminder of the battles fought and the friendships forged. They celebrated not only their military achievements, but also the societal changes that had begun to take shape. In the twilight of their lives, the Tuskegee Airmen understood that their greatest victory lay not in the accolades or recognition they received, but in the lives they had touched and the barriers they had helped to dismantle. Their experiences and their fight for justice became a foundational narrative in the ongoing quest for equality in America. They had broken the Luftwaffe's morale without firing a shot, but more importantly, they had ignited a movement that would continue to challenge injustice for generations to come. Their legacy was a living testament to the belief that true heroism transcends the battlefield, and that courage can inspire profound change in the world beyond the skies. As the Tuskegee Airmen transitioned into civilian life, their impact on American society began to resonate beyond military accolades. They became advocates for civil rights, leveraging their notoriety to challenge systemic racism. Their voices, once limited to the cockpit, now echoed in legislative halls and community forums. Many of the airmen, emboldened by their experiences, joined organizations like the NAACP, fiercely campaigning for desegregation and equal rights. In the years following the war, the airmen's stories inspired a new generation of Black pilots and leaders. Schools embraced the narrative of the Red Tails as a symbol of possibility. Young Black men and women, once told that their dreams of flight were unattainable, now saw the Tuskegee Airmen as living proof that barriers could be broken. Flight schools across the nation experienced a surge in enrollment among Black students, eager to take to the skies. The airmen also recognized the importance of sharing their experiences. They collaborated with historians and filmmakers to document their stories, ensuring that future generations would understand the significance of their struggles. Documentaries highlighting their contributions went on to win awards, and they became frequent guests on talk shows where they discussed not just their military service, but the broader implications of their fight against discrimination. As the civil rights movement gained momentum in the 1960s, the airmen's legacy became intertwined with the pursuit of equality. They participated in marches and rallies, standing shoulder to shoulder with leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. and Rosa Parks. Their presence served as a powerful reminder that the fight for justice was not just a contemporary issue, it was a continuation of the battles they had faced during the war. In one pivotal moment, a group of airmen was invited to speak at a major civil rights rally in Washington, D.C. Standing before a crowd of thousands, they recounted their experiences, emphasizing that courage was not just demonstrated in the skies but also in the streets. Their words resonated deeply, inspiring many to take action and stand against injustice. The psychological impact of their achievements began to manifest in unexpected ways. Former Luftwaffe pilots, now civilians, were interviewed about their experiences in the war. Surprisingly, many admitted that the reputation of the Tuskegee Airmen had instilled a sense of fear and respect among their ranks. They spoke of the formidable Red Tails, whose relentless pursuit of excellence forced their adversaries to reconsider their preconceptions about black pilots. This acknowledgement became a testament to the airmen's influence, proving that morale can be shattered without a single bullet being fired. As the decades rolled on, the airmen's legacy continued to flourish. Schools, streets, and even airports were named in their honor, ensuring that their contributions would never be forgotten. In 2007, they were awarded the Congressional Gold Medal, a recognition that encapsulated their bravery and the societal shifts they had inspired. Yet, even with such accolades, the airmen remained humble, attributing their successes not to individual heroics, but to the collective effort of their squadron and the support of their communities. In their twilight years, the Tuskegee Airmen found joy in witnessing the gradual but significant changes occurring in American society. They saw black pilots ascend to leadership positions in the military and civilian aviation, breaking the glass ceiling they once faced. Their legacy became a catalyst for change, reminding the nation that the fight for equality is an ongoing journey, one that requires courage, resilience, and the unwavering belief that a better future is possible. As they reflected on their lives, they understood that their story was not just their own, but a chapter in the larger narrative of America, a story of struggle, achievement, and the relentless pursuit of justice for all.